South Africa is heading to the polls this month, but prayer becomes so important for the country, and the South African Council of Churches will be hosting a National Day of Prayer on Sunday, the 5th of May in Johannesburg. Many denominations will be participating, as well as a range of social and civic leaders around the country that will gather together in this momentous occasion. To tell us more about the program is Reverend Zwandile Molo, the Acting Secretary General of the South African Council of Churches.
Good afternoon, Yashika, and greetings to the viewers and listeners.
Thank you very much. So we are on our platform All About Faith, and today we are talking about the very exciting program that will be taking place this weekend. Our country is geared to hold one of the biggest democratic elections in the country, and it is a very exciting time for the citizens of the country. But nothing can be done without prayer. And today, the South African Council of Churches has taken the initiative to actually host a National Day of Prayer. Reverend, please tell us a little bit more about why this important day was looked at.
Thank you very much, Yashika. Indeed, thank you for hosting us and having us in your platform. The National Day of Prayer is one that is predicated on the following understanding. The first understanding is that we are people of faith. In this country, 80% of us give allegiance to one form or another of a faith tradition that has shaped who we are as a people and as a nation. And because we are such a people, we firmly believe that everything we do must be linked into the wisdom, guidance, inspiration, and power of God. And because we believe in that, all of our lives then should be encompassed by this continuous conversation between us and the one who has created us. But most importantly for now, these coming elections are critical in the history of this nation. They're critical because in them we have another chance in which we as citizens can discern what it is that God wants us to do and to be as we build a different future. And because we must discern for that, voting is part of that sacred responsibility that God gave you and I, Yashika, when God created us from the first moment of creation. Remember that wonderful story? When God has finished creation, he gave responsibility to human beings to co-create with God a different future. And throughout history, God invites his people to pray and discern for the right leaders and choose among them men and women of integrity that are going to lead them and govern their affairs. And as the SACC, therefore, we believe that this moment is a sacred responsibility for all of us to discern the kind of leaders God wants us to deserve. Secondly, the constitution of our country entitles us, Yashika, as a people of this wonderful land, through the struggles of the past and the adoption in 1996 of the constitution, to have the right every 5 years to elect the people we want to elect, so that those who govern us do not take us for granted, don't think that they're going to govern us forever, but they govern us through the mandate that we give. So as the SACC, we said, therefore, the elections are a national commitment, not a party political commitment. Yashika, we're a little bit tired of politicians thinking elections is about them winning or losing. It is the responsibility that the Constitution and God gives us as a country. South Africa is our country. It is our responsibility. We must therefore own the election process for the sake of our country. Owning it means we bring it before God. We commit ourselves to peaceful elections. We commit ourselves to a wonderful journey of differing without seeing each other as enemies, of working hard to find the best people to govern and lead us without destroying the other, and asking for the IEC to do its work with integrity, asking the police to protect all of us so that we exercise our right to vote free of intimidation, free of violence, and in peace, so that our choice is our choice.
Absolutely, Reverend. Absolutely. And I think you captured some of the most important points that South Africa needs to heed today. Just talking about that, the electorate, the people, the citizens themselves, what do they feel about the leaders of the country who are taking the stand to pray, to acknowledge that there's a divine entity that permeates all our actions and our lives? And the fact that today the leaders of the South African Council of Churches have come forward as perhaps the founding fathers, the founding leaders of the country to say, let's pause, let's take a moment to reflect. And you are absolutely right. It is not just about the political leaders, but it's about the type of service that they have to render. And we often forget that leaders are servants of the people. What is your thoughts on that?
The reality, Yashika, is we have allowed ourselves as a nation to be hoodwinked into mortgaging our responsibility to build this country. Somewhere, somehow, we found it easy to expect politicians to work miracles for us. So we gave them the vote in one moment and we fold our arms waiting for service delivery somewhere, waiting for them to come and give us what we want. And because of that, they have almost taken the mantra of being our messiahs, that they are the ones who liberate us. They are the ones who will give us all what we want. The moment of prayer seems to start by saying there is a being much more supreme than any other individual. So whoever is going to participate in this election must come in not as our messiah, but as our servant, as somebody that we ourselves say to them, based on what you tell us, based on what we believe we want, maybe we can give you a chance to serve us, not to lord over us, to give you a chance to serve us. And when we give you that chance to serve us, we will hold you accountable. We will look at the things you do. We will look at your character. We will look at the vision that you have. The more you divide us, the more we will be uncomfortable with that division, because all of us are God's people created in God's image. If you want to further fracture our country, we want to say to you, that's not what we want. If you want to continue to perpetuate the depths of poverty that the impact that we are living in, we want to say to you, that's not serving us. If you serve a section of the population at disregarding the other, that's not service to the people. If you think by winning the elections, you have the right to govern only for those that have supported you, you are betraying the foundations of this government, of this constitution. But most importantly, you are betraying the call of God that says to all of us that in God there's no Jew or Gentile. In God there's no rich, there's no poor, there's no male or female. In God, all of us live with a deep sense of yearning for the dignity that comes from God. Our country has the potential to show that, but all we need is for citizens to take responsibility. They take serious their responsibility to vote, but not only the responsibility to vote, commit themselves into walking and working with politicians to change this country. When politicians don't do that which is right, regardless of party politics, we must all rise up. Yashika, our prayer is, what drives our people is not the flag that takes you to Matabandlovu. What drives us as a country is a vision of a country where all of God's children can live to their God-given potential, free of prejudice, free of poverty, free of hunger, free of gender-based violence. That's what inspires us, because that's what God calls us to be.
Absolutely. And really, really putting it so succinctly, Reverend. Now, tell us a little bit about the function on Sunday, where it's going to be held, and who actually are going to be part and parcel of the beautiful program that you have set up.
Thank you, Ashika. We are very excited about what the program looks like for Sunday. And I'll tell you what, and please indulge me for a second here. The date is the 5th of May. The time is 2 o'clock. The service is in Pimville, Soweto, in the church called Grace Bible Church. Those who want to go there, please, you can Google the address of the church, GPS. You'll find it on GPS. And you can please go and be part of us. That service, Yashika, is dedicated to unity in diversity and the responsibility of creating and imaging the country. What we have done, we have tried to make sure through our worship, Yashika, that our worship will be diverse. Those of us who enjoy worshiping in the contemporary gospel side through the Grace Bible Church gospel worship team will be led into that wonderful moment of worship. Those of us who like brass band worship, you will be received by a brass band from one of our churches in the East Rand. You'll also be received by the brass band of the South African Police Service, who will be there to receive you. Traditional singing through groups like Amadodana, not the professional group, but the worshippers who worship in that style, who would lead us. So the music will be such wonderful diversity of all South Africans. Secondly, the leadership who will participate in this work, from the Archbishop of Cape Town, Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, who is the president of the SACC, who will be preaching. Through all the leaders of different denominations, you would have the TISA leaders, you would have the leaders from African CAIC, which is African Instituted Churches. With you there, you are going to have your evangelical groups, you've got your charismatic groups, then you've got what you might call your traditional churches, your Methodists, your Anglicans. All of them will be there. We're excited that as things stand, Yashika, we have received a confirmation of attendance of perhaps close to 70 or 80% of the political parties that are going to contest the elections. We are still trying to chase all of them out. They are going to attend, and when they attend, our hope is that as a sign of humility and a sign of unity in diversity, at a certain time, we are going to call all of them to come up and be prayed for all together at the same time, to be prayed for by our leaders. Not one political party, but all of them standing there to be prayed for by our faith leaders. We are going to bring together the IEC, which will be there, which will not only be prayed for, but will share with us their own preparations for the elections. We will have there in the SAPS, who will share with us their preparedness in securing for all of us these elections. We'll pray for those who are observers for the elections. We will pray for the journalists. SANEF has confirmed that they will be there, and we know the enormous responsibility that the journalism and those who communicate our stories carry. We'll pray for them. And all of that, Yashika, will be held together by this wonderful moment of our church leaders, from presiding Bishop Sono to the presiding bishop of the Anglican Church to the moderator of the UCCSA. All of them will form part of this wonderful, wonderful expression. What is it that we want people to live with? It is this idea that South Africa is our common home, that God did not make a mistake by bringing us together. Political parties will differ by policy. They will agitate for things that are different, but we should not allow them to divide us and let us and treat each other as enemies. We should all say to ourselves, ultimately, it is our responsibility to build a beautiful country. And that moment of worship with them, we are looking forward to seeing all of them in the same space without them speaking. They will not be speaking. No politician will speak. They will be simply here. They are being prayed for. And therefore, just imagine that wonderful picture, Yashika. All political parties that are present being prayed together in the same space, where they're not looking for political advantage, but they're simply there and they're being prayed for. And they hear the prayers of the people and the wishes of the people.
It's actually a very humbling experience, I'm sure, for most of the politicians, because throughout this month, you're only hearing everyone sharing their thoughts, their manifestos, etc., and the promises as well. And I think that is the critical thing. We should not promise that we cannot meet, but
Yes.
that's all part of the election rhetoric. But I think for the first time in their lives, they'll be able to be invited to a space of holiness, a space of worship, a space of contemplation. And I think it's a very good idea that the religious leaders are actually bringing them to pause and reflect on their own leadership abilities, because that is what the country needs. Country needs leaders with human values and values of sacrifice, values of compassion, and values of listening, because I think that is one of the key things we don't seem to have in our leadership today. What are your thoughts around some of the values that leaders should have, Reverend?
The reality, Ashika, is that in the formation of the new country, we allowed the nostalgia and almost the sacredness of the reason for struggle to almost appear as if it will just, through osmosis, reinforce itself. Because we lived through a time where people sacrificed, others died, and we thought those values are simply going to last. Yashika, I am old enough to know that if you do not invest in goodness, evil will triumph. And therefore, we are saying we as a country must bring back these values so that these values are embedded in anybody who emerges as a potential leader. The church in this country must take some responsibility for the kind of citizens it has offered to the country. Because Yashika, if you are 80% people of faith, and majority of which are Christian, then when corruption erupts, where selfishness erupts, when greed takes over, when violence takes over, it is not only a commentary on the society itself. It is a commentary society at one point, but at a deep level, it is a commentary on the failure of the church of making good citizens. It is therefore important for us as the church that we invest with society to create those values that are going to transcend political party interest. Values of compassion, values of solidarity, values of honesty, values of respect, values of service, values of sacrifice. That we must understand that flashing opulence is not a sign of success. Greed is not a sign of success. Success and greatness is found in the quality of service you offer rather than on the amount of accumulated goods you possess. We now have to fight very hard with society, in society, to make sure that indeed we work hard. Yashika, if you can indulge me for a second, wherever I speak now, I say to people, we are no more fighting thieves in terms of individuals. We are fighting thievery. Thievery has become the kind of defining character of our country. So if we fight individuals, we are going to lose the battle, because whoever comes is going to fall into that culture of thievery. So we need then to say to ourselves, our fight is not individuals, our fight is thievery itself. So we must invest in that. And that includes teaching. That from Sunday school, if you are part of a Christian community, from adult formation groups in cultural settings, in schools, in universities, those who do BCom accounting, those who do the chartered accountant work, you can't just give them skills. You can't. You have to give them ethics and morality that allows them to fight thievery, because there's no greater thief than the one who's able to hide the thievery from you, because they've got the capability to hoodwink you by the numbers they possess. And ultimately, this is what I call to society. Yashika, we as South Africans, as a society, must withhold our social approval from those who are thieves amongst us. Because we've got social capital. Every thief I know, every greedy person I know wants to throw a party, wants to have crowds around them, wants to buy things so that we can clap hands for them. The best deterrent we can offer as a society is when somebody is not working or did not work as far as we know, and they have a big car, they've got a big house, they spend money like anything, and we know deep in our hearts that this person gets this money out of crooked ways. We as society must say, we might not arrest you, the police will, but we as this community will withdraw our approval from you. You are a thief, we will not celebrate thievery. That is the moral pressure that we can apply, because all thieves and all people that I know of want the approval of their communities. We can withhold that as we begin to say we build a different culture.
Absolutely. I think it's paving the way for cultural reconnection and cultural sustenance. And I think that's a very, very big, space that the church is playing at the moment. We know in the history of our struggle as a country, the church played a pivotal role to bring about the liberation in South Africa. But you are so right. People are still caught up in a nostalgia, but they're not living the values of true leadership. And I think it's important to remind them from time to time through such events like the National Day of Prayer. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you very, very much for joining us today in our studio. And we wish you all the best for the program on Sunday.
Thank you, Ashika. See some of your followers on Sunday, 5 May, 2 o'clock at Grace Bible Church. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.